The sun bled across the desert horizon like a wound refusing to close. The wind carried dust, whispers, and the ache of loneliness that only men who lived too long with silence could understand. Ethan Clay, a young rancher barely 25, sat on the porch of his half-built barn, lantern flickering beside him. The cattle had wandered far beyond the ridge, and even his old horse seemed tired of the stillness that came with endless waiting. Ethan had inherited the land from a father who never returned from war and a mother who died believing the prairie was cursed. Yet he stayed, not because he loved it, but because he had nowhere else to go. That evening, as twilight stretched its fingers across the sand, a shadow approached from the desert, tall, steady, deliberate. Ethan rose, hand on the lantern handle, heart kicking in his chest. The figure came closer until the shape of a woman materialized, broad-shouldered, fierce-eyed, wearing leather garments marked with beads and feathers. Her skin caught the fading sun like bronze fire, and her braids swung heavy down her chest. She was taller than any woman Ethan had ever seen. When she stopped at the doorway, her gaze was direct and unflinching. "I haven't had love in 6 months," she said, her voice deep, raw, and strangely calm. Ethan froze, unsure if he'd heard her right. She didn't speak like a lost soul begging for warmth. She spoke like someone stating a fact, maybe a challenge. "Ma'am, I don't rightly know what you mean," he managed. She studied him, the way one might study a creature too fragile for the wild. "My name is Tala. My tribe called me Giant Sister. I came looking for a man with a heart too soft for this land. The elders said he lives alone, with no bloodline, no fire in his home." Ethan felt something strange stir, a mixture of fear and fascination. "That sounds a lot like me," he said quietly. Tala nodded once, stepping into the doorway. "Then I found the right man." The moment hung heavy between them. She told him she'd been wandering between territories, searching for peace after losing her brother in a battle with ranchers. She'd vowed to never trust another white man. But the dreams she had of a ranch, of a quiet man who looked at the sky with sadness instead of greed, brought her here. Ethan listened, caught by the rhythm of her words, the weight of her presence. As night deepened, thunder rolled across the plains. Ethan offered her food and she accepted only water. They sat by the lantern's glow, her eyes reflecting stories older than the hills. "Why come here?" he asked finally. "Because even warriors grow tired of war," she said. "And because your name came in my dream." Outside, rain began to fall, rare, blessed rain. The barn filled with the scent of wet wood and dust. Ethan couldn't tell if it was fear or wonder tightening his chest. But for the first time in years, he wasn't thinking of leaving the ranch. When she stood, her shadow filled the doorway again. "Tomorrow I'll help you build your fences," she said. "A ranch is only as strong as the hands that guard it. Maybe you'll teach me how to rest. Maybe I'll teach you how to stand." Ethan smiled faintly. "That sounds fair." As the night closed around them, something unspoken settled. Not love yet, but a promise of it. Two wounded spirits, strangers under one roof, daring the desert to break them before they could heal each other. By sunrise, the world looked new. The storm had washed the dust clean, and the mountains glowed like embers on the edge of the world. Tala was already awake, tending to the horses with movements sharp and graceful. Ethan watched her from the doorway, realizing she belonged to the land in a way he never did. She didn't fight it, she flowed with it. For weeks she stayed. They rebuilt fences, drove cattle together, and traded silence for laughter. Ethan began to learn her ways, how to track rain from the scent of the wind, how to walk without stirring the rattlesnakes, how to listen instead of speak. She in turn learned to rest her weapons, to trust a man who didn't hide behind pride. One afternoon, as the heat shimmered over the sand, a group of armed riders appeared, ranchers from the north who claimed Ethan's land was theirs. Tala stepped forward before Ethan could speak. Standing between him and the riders, the leader spat in the dirt. "We don't talk with savages," he said. Tala's eyes turned cold as flint. "Then you don't talk at all," she replied. When the men reached for their guns, she moved faster than the wind. One strike knocked the leader to his knees. Ethan fired a warning shot into the air. The others fled, leaving dust and silence behind. Later, Ethan found her sitting alone by the corral, staring into the horizon. "You didn't have to fight for me," he said. She turned to him slowly. "You would have fought for me," she answered. That night they sat beneath the stars. The desert stretched endless and quiet, their faces lit by the glow of a small fire. Tala spoke of her brother, How he'd once said the heart is the wildest horse. You can't break it, only learn to ride it. Ethan told her how he'd prayed for something to fill the silence, never expecting the answer to come walking out of the desert. When she looked at him, the hardness in her eyes melted. You were never meant to be alone, she said softly. The land doesn't grow if the heart stays empty. Ethan reached out, taking her hand, not with lust, but with gratitude, awe, and quiet need. Two souls who had spent too long surviving finally learned what it meant to live. The desert wind moved through them, carrying the scent of rain, sage, and second chances. By dawn, they stood at the ridge, the ranch stretching behind them like a promise. What now? Ethan asked. Tala smiled faintly. Now we build something worth protecting. And as the morning sun rose, painting their faces gold, the rancher and the Apache sister walked forward, not as strangers, not as lost souls, but as the beginning of a story no storm could wash away.